I'm streaming. Oh my gosh. I really fix up my hair and my look. I only wear these for reading. However, they might give me a certain distinguished look in the way that I am. We just did Mondays live.com where my guests who warned me, even though they live on the East Coast, at 9 o'clock in the morning, they might still be asleep. And I said, you're an exalted professional who works from home. So they don't need to get up. And they were so excited about being on my show, and then they overslept. So I had to do it. You can check it out at mondays.org. It's Monday morning motivational thing. So I am still here in New York. This is 10 days after Valentine's, 2025. Where I had a fiasco. I was doing what was called a love bomb, where you go and this is what my friends told me I should do. And I Googled it online, saw the pictures. I was inspired, and this was an ex, someone we hadn't, or we say me, hadn't had any kind of connection for quite some time, although it was quite a connection at one time. So I thought, oh, yeah, it's a great idea. I'll put some balloons. None of them said I love you or anything like that. It was just like Happy Valentine's, surprise, and yellow tulips and some kind of gift I'd ordered online of like a permanent plasticated rose and a little necklace, symbolizing a high school ring at one time. So it backfired and it totally just blew up in my face. So that was my welcome to New York. However, at the same time, though, realizing that person no longer lived there. Oh, explain, why did it blow up, Dr. Mike? Because the person no longer lived there, but they subleased it. They own it, the unit, and the tenant complained. Somebody love bombed them. And, someone lurking around, waiting for the moment to, because you're nervous, you're getting your space, and then you do it and you're gone. At the time, I felt like I accomplished something. This is a good thing. And they get a really nasty email. This is an Ivy League graduate person who says, I'll call the cops if you do it again. Well, is it police? I mean, where are you these days? But they're not in New York. I mean, that's the sense of it. Probably back in my hometown. And they're just thinking like, oh, I'm free. I'm not, the weight on my shoulders or back for all these decades got uplifted on this trip. Not to say that I'm not inclined, if there was an opportunity, to have a loving conversation, because that's what it's all about. And to reconnect in a very nice and elegant way, to just say, hey, how are you? Look at us now, or whatever it is, and just appreciate the phenomena of all this experience. But the person's orientation and viewpoint and opinion might totally be, it's like, never, never again deal with that guy or that situation. But the attempt for peaceful reconciliation was made. And whether it's appreciated or not, probably not likely. And anything more would just disorient, the premise of what the whole thing is. Anyway, I'm about to leave because I want to enjoy New York. The weather's supposed to be really warm, much better in my extended stay than what I would have been out in the outskirts of Milwaukee. I'm only there because my kids are there. So I just wanted to sort of share in this regard that this was one of the things had we gotten together to propose co-writing a book on loving conversations in the attempt to make a community contribution, and in an effervescent way, maybe we could help create something that would model the way towards really having these kind of conversations that break free of the past and allow bygones to be bygones. And if there is something that needs to be worked out or better understood, it can be appreciated and considered. So here's what my other breakthrough was that occurred. So I have other friends in New York I haven't seen in a very long time, and most of them are now gone. They're just gone. It's a different period of time. It'd been a long time ago. However, before COVID, well, before my kids, actually. I mean, even though with my kids, we visited New York a couple of times. We lived upstate. But they were born in LA, and from that time lived in Shanghai, and then upstate, and now we're in Milwaukee. The New York trips are just in between, maybe going to the NEB show, like an expo trade show, but not often like it used to be. So I don't see my friends that much. But one of my friends, so there's actually two. So one of them was a really, really close friend. It was part of my Success Club. We went to Hawaii together. Tony Robbins, totally gone to the dark side. I couldn't believe in the pollinization of political diatribe. If you know what I'm talking about, wears a certain color hat, now wants to carry guns in the open, and has a whole fealty, sort of devotion and ideology that everything he hears, which is all distortion and conspiracy theory, is actually correct. So it puts a damper on things, being able to relate, even though we love each other as brothers, that he doesn't understand being me, who I am, that I don't get it. I'm saying, man, you don't get it. So I write about these ideas, but it's a dangerous ideology to where he's at and his community and his connections. And think about, wow, of course he's from New Jersey. We can say something about that. He's from the Garden State. Not to put down here in New Jersey who kind of, you know what I'm saying, right? It's like my friend, her named after a certain Roman god or goddess. It's like you don't know which side you're looking at. And so you're trying to appeal to certain one way to have a breakthrough in a conversation that says, okay, could it be that you're being misled, brainwashed, or you just have one blinders, a viewpoint on it that can only be perceived this way? And I have to be considerate toward my own way of presenting because maybe I don't see something for myself, which many people would argue is the case. So, but that related to another friend who's kind of neutral in this discussion, but was part of the old tribe, and just sort of like, loves you for who you are. No engagement for over 20 years, but said, I have something for you. And it was great seeing you. And we went for coffee and stuff like that and trying to catch up with people. And in the coffee shop, another coincidence happens because knowing me, I talk to people, which in Wisconsin where I live, that's considered unusual. And at a cafe, there was words about this guy who's a podcaster might come up and talk to. But he asked permission first, doesn't pull out the mic and start recording. I'm all about engagement and permission. If you don't have permission, I don't want to go there. I might knock on the door, but if I get like a nasty email that says go away, I go away. You got to respect the space. Otherwise, it's karma, But anyway, this person said, I have something for you. I said, all right, cool. And this is, this is like going back to the really early days since I graduated college and I moved to San Francisco in pursuit. This was like a side gig hobby. Never really made any money on it, but I published one of the early alternative radio newsletters. This is, I guess, 1985, right? And this was I rented a room, which I did not live in, but that was my workspace to create the newsletter on Prosper Street, 45 Prosper Street. And one day I asked that lady, I said, how did you get a house like this in San Francisco? Because she'd lived there, gosh, who knows, these people at that time in the 80s, they've been around for a while. And she introduced me to her literally Mexican real estate agent who did property here in Mexico. And he was like, I just got the perfect place for you. So I said, all right, I want to see it. And even though it was a dump and needed a lot of work, it was the opportunity to get a house in San Francisco in the 80s. Now, to put the story in context related to the love bombing, I primarily moved to San Francisco to try to mend things up. I came back from an internship where we broke up. Not that she was in Chicago. I went to DC, and her intuition says, don't go. I didn't listen. So anyway, it's a good lesson in that regard. But anyway, coming back into sort of my empty space where we were, about to be in the process of moving in together, but I had these ego issues, which you don't know about. You have to read in my writing, igoism.com or Igo Research, because it really is true that there was a complex identity crisis going on with me of who I was presenting myself as and wondering if the girl could really like the real person I was, because I was showing up through this mask, but really we're going to live together. She might see the real me. And then in that regard, oh my gosh, and we had talked about going to Europe together and planning it. And all these things came up for myself that were issues. And so, this is it. I'm living my life through a mask. At some point, it's going to be revealed. And I used to have this magic mirror in my apartment. It's in Chicago. If you fold it like this, you can see multiple cells. And she was laughed and freaked out when I showed her that. But in reality, there were times where I would look at it and go, well, which one am I? It's not like I had real confusion or bipolar or those issues, thank God. People really do with a lot of things. My sister dealt with schizophrenia. But I was in a quandary thinking about how I appear and how I have to act in that regard. That was a real issue. Like 3 times I almost came up to the surface and go, I have to say something and talk to you about it. And I remember those times vividly, but I couldn't do it. And then it cost me in the end. And that tells you about becoming genuine. But anyway, in the pursuit, coming back from my internship, first feeling in my apartment was, this is dead. This is like, you could feel the space empty but void. She's gone. She'd gone to San Francisco to go with her sister so she could recoup, because we both had a traumatic experience in this regard. And I was like, oh, no, I can't live here anymore. It's like, I don't know where to go. So I go to my mom's for a couple of days. You have an apartment. Go back over there. And I'm just thinking, man, something's not right coming back to Chicago. Once she's gone, we broke up. And I'm no longer in vibe. I get all my jobs back. I was a lifeguard at the YMCA, which has stories unto itself. I worked for a it was called Facets Multimedia, so a place that showed international and experimental and alternative film, which is great. We have to be careful with the word alternative, but this is what this was, alternative radio. And that was my side gig, and I was no longer, I graduated now because I completed that process through this internship. But I felt I needed to move on. And then I had my picture come out in the newspaper. And when I saw my picture, it was like revealing to myself that I cannot be this guy. But I was. And it was sort of like, I need to totally change my life. So I decided to sell everything because I needed to move to go where she was. And there was an opportunity to work at a political convention. There was nothing promised to me, but the hope was if I went there, I could get this job and I would get her back and we'd have a whole new life. That was the whole thing. Now, whether it was ever clearly communicated, because it wasn't, because again, we're living through our masks as I go, I went on my way. Now, it took me time to get kind of settled in. And on the weird coincidences, and there were a few, going to on the bus to an interview. She's already been in San Francisco. I just get out there. So maybe it's a few weeks later, right? Or whatever time frame it was. Shortly after my arrival, I'm going to my interview for this political convention at Moscone Center. And she gets on the bus. I recognize her right away. And I'm like, wow, what's going on? But hear that she's like lost, going the wrong way, trying to go home. She's going downtown when she needs to go other way up to, I imagine, where her sister was. So anyway, I got off the bus and I talked to her, and it seemed like we connect for a little bit. And I was like surprised. I mean, she's really casual and like almost like to me wearing her nightgown out in public, going back to her place where she was going home. And then me going to this interview. And I said, and part of my intuition was, man, forget the interview. Let's just go for breakfast or get tea, whatever. But we did agree that we would meet and say, hey, let's connect and do that. We never did plan or get together just for coffee. That would have probably been helpful in whatever way that we could. But there were other coincidences that came up. And anyway, just to finish that story, though, I got back on the wrong bus. And had I stayed on the same bus, I would have been on time and everything. So I was late. And the bus didn't go exactly to where I needed to go. So that caused me to be further late, figuring out how to get into the Moscone Center for the interview. And I didn't get the job. I was sort of like, who's this character? Get out of here. You've got no future in politics. And so I was really down on that. And then a few weeks later, I saw her again at the bus stop at Haight Street and Van Ness, or a little bit further than that. And I was being dropped off, because the guy was going to the airport and he really needed to go, but he went on my way, just take me at that point to the bus. He said, just catch the Haight bus. And I only had a few stops to go, but he couldn't take me. But there she was. And so I ran after the car to convince him to let me back in because I was like having a bad hair day. So I avoided that. But yet, again, another mistake, because maybe we would have had a nice write-up and we were connected. And we were in San Francisco at the same time and would have been able to hang out and enjoy it right at that period of time. Well, anyway, going back to the story when I was working on publishing this and seeing this house that was a dump, it was sort of like thinking, oh, one time her and I talked about, we had this ideal, like what would the dream be back in Chicago? I said, well, we would get a house, we have lots of babies. She was all in the idea that we would start a family at some point in the future, and we would spoil them. Those are the 3 points. Get a house, have lots of babies, and we'd spoil them. That was the goal, right? Because the whole idea of concept of having kids and spoiling them just seemed to entice us. So I thought, well, this would be the house. And I had to look her up and get her opinion. And so my friends who were kind of with me, and one of them was like a contractor guy, no, dude, we'll get the house and work on it. You bring her and you show her this dump. You got no chance. She's going to run away. So, but she wants to be an architect. I mean, she can give us advice. I said, no, architecture is when you build a house. We need to knock this down or rebuild it. It's a total makeover, It's like, and it did. Like it was burlap wallpaper and the stairs going up and holding in the original plaster that was falling. Everything needed work. And beyond my capacity, but I couldn't afford the contractors, but they were nice enough to teach me and show me things and buy materials and get the permits and stuff that allowed me to work on the house. So this leads to the interesting thing. So when I got this gifted back, I said, you sure you don't want to hold on to it? So what do I need it for? This is one of your original copies. And having lived in so many cities, there's not much I have in an archive. So I appreciated that. This is the first issue, but on the backside was the future issue. So the last coincidence of in San Francisco was me going on the bus. I just had picked up one copy that the printer, who was really at war with his wife at the print shop, they were partners, left the job overnight that she didn't complete. So he had to take off, because I met him early in the morning, to print out one copy for me so it could be reviewed to say the go-ahead, but he had to take it off again and put that job on and finish it. Anyway, long story short, I get this in the morning and I get on the bus I was working part-time at this classical radio station. And sure enough, she gets on the bus with her sister. So I'm just surprised, like another coincidence happening. But as soon as she introduced her sister, I remember clearly what my first thought was. Oh my God, I wonder what she told her about me. And then so the whole thing went into sort of like, oh, I want to get back with her on good terms. And right away, I felt this connection. I'm sure she did too. It seems like we really were in sync for that moment. But I'm trying to explain myself in a way to show like, hey, I've changed. I'm responsible. And I do say, I've got a house, I got this job, and I got this newsletter, which all seems to karmically and copacetically, charismatically and syntax, synchronicities, like, wow, at this very moment. But how could I say that I got you a house after not seeing her in so long? Because it's just the ideal concept that I'm working on. It's not ready. But a few more weeks, I'm hoping to look for her and find her, at least to connect with her and show her I got a house, if that makes any difference, because I wasn't quite sure. But it was meaningful that I could get a house with very little money down, but need a lot of work because of the condition it was in. It needed a lot of work even at that point when I saw it, but at least it was progressing. And so I was maybe a little bit full of myself, and it was a shorter ride than what I thought for them. And I really wanted to find out how she was doing and how we can connect later. Didn't really have that chance. So just before she got off the bus, I gave her the one issue. And of course, later when I talked to the printer, he was like, well, what'd you think? Are we ready to go? And I said, oh man, I don't have it. He goes, well, what do you mean? I haven't had a chance to look at it because I gave it away. What do you mean you gave it away? I gave it away to a girl on the bus. So of course it was like the girl on the bus, but for him it was like, why'd you do that, man? I need your okay. And I said, well, just run a few and I'm sure it's fine. And so, well, you want to make any changes? It's your last chance. I said, well, I'll let you know tomorrow. And so by tomorrow, there was a major change because giving this is the issue is about called the future. And this was a gift because symbolically, now the whole exchange on the bus, this is much like Star Wars and being the Jedi mindset. Like you think that you're relating concepts, information. Like I was saying, if you knew the real reason why I got this house, you'd be mad at me. Wink, wink, whatever I was doing. Like, it's like, you get it, right? And you think like, oh yeah, that's really great. All right, wow, congratulations. But that wasn't happening. It was still a nice type of thing, but what you think is sort of connecting by going, oh, I see in your eyes, we have love for each other. Oh, this is great. I wanted to whisper in her ear at that point and said, I think about you every day. But there's that caution again, like, well, you're going to go too far. It would have been, in that moment, an elegant way to just say, hey, I think about you. And maybe emphasize a little bit more, even though the sister was there, to just tell the truth and say, hey, I'm really inspired to get this house because of our vision or our dream. We literally called it the ideal. And I didn't do that because I thought it was kind of understood. And then when I gave her this, I thought it was totally understood because it's the future. It's all about the future. Now, that's a far stretch. However, this comes to the point of I call her at her sister's house maybe an hour or two later when I get back to when I get to start my job at the station. And her sister's telling her that, I'm on the phone. And I hear her in the background going, I don't want to talk to him. Something like that, right? It's like, oh no, nothing changed. I was hoping this was going to be a breakthrough. What's going on? So as soon as she got on the phone, it broke my stride. You know what I mean? It's sort of like, I don't know what to say. And it's kind of embarrassing. And plus, I only have the record, which is a long record in classical LPs. But once I got to get the next record on and continue on, so I got to think this through, put her on hold for a second, and kind of come back to it. I don't know what to do. I should have just said, naturally, are you okay? Everything going on? It's really great to see you. I want to invite you to see the house, or can we get out for coffee? I'd like to mend our relationship. But the vibe was sort of like, I don't know what to do with it. So, she wanted to get off the phone, and I just didn't know what to say. So I just ended it right then and there. I should have asked, like, did you look at the issue? Well, as soon as we get off the phone, another hour later, my friend Les calls and says, what's going on? I said, you won't believe what just happened today on the bus. I saw us. And as soon as I mentioned her name, there was an earthquake. And this was not like a substantial buildings are falling down, but this was an earthquake so strong enough, it knocked out the transmitter for the radio station. Now, I just told him, hey, listen, I got to go, but this is like the freakiest day ever, dude. And it certainly was. And he couldn't believe it. He's like, wow, earthquake happening at the same time. It's like, I got to go. So the general manager of the radio station, KDSU, shows up. And I got to tell the guy was a character, old guy. And he's a little bit drunk, having too many martinis with his buddy. He goes, oh, this happens almost every time we have an earthquake. It's like, you'll be off the air. I ain't going to pay you for another hour, so you better go. It'll be, a couple hours next shift. See you whenever we get the transmitter fixed. Like, bye. And I'm going, all right, man, I'm out of here. So first thing I think of is, like, given everything that's going on, I'm going to go to her. I'm just going to see if she's okay. It's like, what's going on? Earthquake one, but two is like, we shouldn't be like this anymore. And this is 1986, I think, 85. No, yeah, it was 86. Okay. So I know because this is when this came out. And so I go to her apartment and living in Chinatown. And I'm like nervous as heck because it's sort of like, oh, I don't know what's going on. And I was just really shaking and sweating. It's a weird type feeling because I normally can talk to almost anybody, but this is the one, right? The special one. So her sister comes out. I don't know if she's inside of it, but she said she's not there. And I'm like just so weirded out by everything. It's like, oh man, I feel like really bad about it. And I don't know what's going on. And then this gargoyle cat was at the door and it's hissing at me, really, because it could pick up a vibe, right? Something's going on. And I'm just not feeling right or comfortable being there. Like, I got to get out of this place. I don't know what's happening, but don't you dare come in this unit apartment. And though the intention would be if I did, it was like, hey, we got to work this out. But here's the weird thing. So it didn't happen. And we've been like that 42 years. That's how long it's been, because that's when this came out. Now, the weird thing is, before I go back to this, I never understood what it was that made it so bad. A person can hate you, and that's what I got. So when I returned to my digs, and it really was a dig because we were like trying to figure out everything that's going on in my apartment. I was so inspired up to that point because I was driven by a vision. I moved to a whole new city and I managed to get a house. And it's like, oh my gosh, the dream is coming true. In some way, I'm going to work through this and be a better person and show I'm responsible. And it's going to be fantastic. It's going to be great. And then I'm lying on this urethane floor. It wasn't quite dry because I pinned myself into a corner. I'm just like crying and things like, fuck. Because all of a sudden now is the burden. I've got a house that she's got no interest in. And I'm stuck with this. This dream is not going to happen. And I'm not even in my hometown. I'm in some other city looking to make a life, which was in its own way enchanting. San Francisco, it was another life experience. And I write about this. And I call myself a social philosopher, not published yet. These are different ideas about the phenombook.com, about phenomenology, but how we're in the phenom, this moment of here and now, and how we can interpret it. So these experiences attributed to this, if you say conscious evolution of what it is that we're at, and to be able to maybe communicate in a way that, hey, maybe we can adjust perspectives to kind of get the bigger picture. But some people just want to be left alone, and you have to honor that. So in this regard, I went through sort of oh gosh, it's like some kind of thing that I had to deal with, that this wasn't going to happen. And there was no way for me to break through it because no matter what I did and continued to try to do, there's never a way of a breakthrough. And then I got this and thinking, because I had another weird coincidence. There was a festival in Chicago and I rarely get down to Chicago. And it was like, no parking. I had two of my friends waiting at the coffee shop who wanted to see this band. The band already started. They're waiting for me to take me over there because they know I don't know the way around. This is a huge festival. And we went the day before and had a great time. So I said, I'm going to come back, but I'm going to probably just go home back to San Francisco. I've been back there for a long time, to Wisconsin where I now reside, which is about a 2-hour ride. So I thought, in my way of being smart, I'll drive to the coffee shop and park around there. We'll walk closer to the festival, even though it would have just been another 10-minute walk from where I was. I thought I'll just park closer. But there was no parking because it was a festival going on. And I searched around and around. So on this last time around, going down to where the coffee shop was and telling him on the cell phone, hey man, I'm just going to say hi, bye to you guys. I'm just going to go home because there's no parking. At that moment, a car right in front of me just literally pulled up. I hadn't hit the brake because the car didn't see me, just pulled out. Maybe they thought they could beat me pulling out. I don't know. But the fact that I stopped, there was space all of a sudden just manifested. So I went in head first, because that's the only way I could go. I figured if I tried to pull up, someone's going to try to take it from behind me. That's how it was, So I got in, I pulled out, and I had to back up a little bit. And as I back up, I see a door just swing open almost like immediately. And I figured, man, that's somebody coming out to tell me you can't park there, man. I'm holding that spot for somebody, my wife or whatever. So I pull in really quickly. I get out, and I'm kind of looking like everything's good. And when I see the guy in the steps, he's watering his plants. I don't know why he came out so violently because that door was literally kicked over, maybe because holding a water bottle. But he's just watering his plants, and I'm kind of staring at him. He kind of looks up, and I have this recognition. It's like, I know this guy. And I thought, and it was really weird because I hadn't lived in Chicago for 30 years. So, and coincidences do happen a lot in my life, not necessarily always related to this story, but it did. It took a while, and sort of thinking, well, didn't know him from colleges or whatever, and then it was high school. And then when you get introduced to name, I really fell down two steps on the flight. What? No, Is your dad a dentist? Was your dentist on Diversity Avenue? No, can't be. Oh, it is. No. And in that moment, it was a realization because somehow it got to the story like, yeah, I dated your sister. And the San Francisco came up. But it wasn't, I didn't date her in San Francisco. It was like I got her a house to try to get her back. But I didn't say that. And in that realization of the moment, like, how could you communicate a guy to guy, thinking guy to girl? I must have really said it in the way that it couldn't be understood, not in the way that would have been received, in the way like, hey, I'm trying to tell you I got this for us, but I'm a better person, or showing you like to the extent that I would do something, which already having to the extent I have tried things is so out of the box. It hasn't been at least ever well received. And you just wonder, well, what it is. So there was a little bit of a pursuit in between those years, and there had been a long, long time, a couple of less coincidence, I didn't even recognize her on the train. And when I did see her, I thought, oh my God, she's totally out of shape, like gained all this weight. And then it was, wait a minute, she's pregnant. Now I had just gotten back from, this sounds like a brag, but from London. So I had this extreme jet lag that I never got rid of because I didn't go to sleep when I landed there, as I should have, to sort of get into the time zone. And so I had the whole trip, which was attending this event at Alexandria Palace, and I was just like, if I got to lecture or say anything, it's like, I'm so out of it. And even to that degree, there was that first sense like, I'm just going to sit next to her and say, hey, how you doing? And one, to hope you could rub the Buddha belly, but just say, hey, this is so amazing, and you look great, even though just losing it like that. But it was almost like this force pushing down your belly. You're not allowed to do that. This is a different regard. You want her calling the cops on you if you try that? It's like you can never pass the wall, right? The perceptual thing. So when I got this back in my hand, I realized that this is my conclusion, my wrap up here, that the person, because of the way they perceive that this guy is just saying, hey man, I don't need you. Look how good I'm doing on my own. F you, I'm doing great. That was never the intent, never to say, there's no way to compete with this person. This person's so in their world of whatever that is, but it's sort of like they are the muse of my life, that I muse myself for thinking they're the North Star to evolve myself to where I should have been, or at least consider that if we ever did have a conversation, it would be a loving one and it would be really great. So that's to end it, to say that, hey, obviously the person didn't consider my connections and all that. And it's not to make them wrong. It's like how things get perceived, me bad, didn't communicate clearly, or maybe, I should never have done the things that sort of caused us to, our friendship to dissolve, right? Especially when you were best friends or lovers and all that. But anyway, in the title, seeing that again, it was probably never read. It's like, it says clearly this issue is dedicated to you. I probably have to pause it. So that wraps it up. I probably never see this person this lifetime. I don't know how it's going to congeal, how it's going to go in the future. But being in New York and just being able to walk around with the freedom of just being able to enjoy the space, and have the sense like, oh, this is probably what it was like in some regard at one point in time when you were walking the streets in this area, because I love this area. I one time attended an event at John Jay College. It was like a forum on activism. That was a long time ago. It was like late 90s, early 2000s. I've gone to a few. And but just to walk and see Rhodey Roll still there after all this time, and like really getting to appreciate it. It's like, and the weather's going to be a bit warmer. It's something special about being back, but also just being able to release it, that I'm not feeling that obligation and coming here and thought, oh, this love bombing thing would be the best idea ever. We'll get coffee. We'll be cool. We'll be able to hang out. And that'll be our new future for the latter half of the 2020s. Well, you wish the person the best, and you just say, hey, our own experiences and interpretation and filters, you hope the person is happy and they have everything that they want, and whether a friendship or reconnection or a healing is desired. I'm available. I'm open. It may seem like I got a lot going on in the sense like it has to be one way or another way. No, it's sort of just, it is what it is, right? So anyway, if you're curious about my work, you can check out my website at drmike.org if I'm going to give that as a clue. My writing about the Phenom, I think, is really curious, and I hope to do some while out here. Phenombook.com. Hey, all the best to everyone, sort of sharing my story, sort of like, wow, coming to full circle. I'm hoping I'm able to release it a little bit. Just seeing this again kind of helped, and thinking, wow, these are archive issues. Low Noise, the radio program director's report, a newsletter I used to do, starting for college radio and then sort of adapting more to alternative radio that's now become a commercial format, but I listen to it more in the NPR style or community radio, which I love as a former wizard in Chicago. Woohoo! drmike.org. Hey, thanks again. And hey, if you're watching this, it was long, but hey, half hour to try to say hey. To say, hey, I wish we were friends. I just wish we could get along and connect and talk about anything and everything. We're all right. We're just all right. And that's what it's all about. I want us to be all right. Bye.